Former cricketer and administrator Hoosain Ayob passed away this past weekend at the age of 81 in Gqeberha. He's remembered as one of the great fast bowlers produced in the country to not have represented the nation. Ayob was a stalwart of Transvaal and SACBOC cricket and named by CSA as one of 6 South African fast bowlers of the century. The former ICC Director of Development for Africa was the recipient of Cricket South Africa's Heritage Blazer for his contribution to the game. He represented Transvaal in 17 first-class matches, taking 53 wickets. And joining us now to speak more about the legacy of Ayob, we're joined by former first-class cricketer himself and former cricket convener for Cricket South Africa, Hussein Manack. A very good evening and welcome to Newzroom Afrika.
Thank you very much, Valen. So, Valen, just a quick correction. I was on the selection panel for the national selection panel for the Proteas, but I wasn't the convener. A quick small correction there.
Okay, thank you so much for that correction. But we're talking about the legacy of a man that also played in the province that you played for. Can you tell us a little bit about where you first came into contact with Hussein?
Yeah, so, Hussein was just a larger-than-life figure. I knew him growing up because I grew up on the side of a cricket field from the age of 9, 10, 11. My dad at that time played for Transvaal. So Hoosain Ayob and my dad were teammates. They both represented Transvaal together. They played for many years together. That was, of course, on the SACBOC side. And remember, during those days, you had your white cricket bodies and your non-white cricket body. And they represented Transvaal on the non-white side. They played many of their games on dust bowls, on matting wickets. They played at the Lenasia Cricket Stadium and the Dalspruit. And then, of course, Transvaal would tour around. But, I mean, I grew up watching players like Hoosain Ayob, Solly Chotia, my dad, Tiffy Barnes, who passed away about a month or two ago. So many of those cricketers who many talk about, and I watched them when I was still very, very young. So it was probably at the stage where I couldn't appreciate how good they were. But, people like Aslam Kota, who who's a historian and have watched a lot of cricketers over the years. Many people say that a lot of these cricketers, particularly somebody like Hussein, had things been equal and had been no apartheid, he would have definitely gone on to represent South Africa and play international cricket. So he was that good. He had a fantastic record. I think you outlined some of the stats, which I don't have, but spoke about how many wickets he had. He played in the Dadabai Cup. But also, I mean, he just loved the game. He was so passionate about cricket,
Yeah, and he plowed that passion back into the game. He was the chairman of the Lenasia Cricket Club for many, many years. As an educator, he wrote a book called Crossing Boundaries. Just how important is a figure like that, pre-unification and then post-unification, for actually keeping the sport alive in his community?
Very important. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, absolutely cricketer. And remember, he came from a community in Lenasia. And of course, he then went, and when he stopped playing, he then went on and he was involved in the development program with Kaya Majola, and then he got involved in ICC Africa, toured around Africa, growing cricket all throughout Africa, came back and continued coaching. So he was a coaching instructor. I mean, I remember, I think one of my coaching level 2 or level 3 coaching courses, he was an instructor there. So he continued giving courses, coaching, educating. As you say, he was an educator. He was a principal at a few schools for many years. So he carried that on, and he continued. He just had, as I said earlier, he was a larger-than-life figure. He was that somebody who you always knew was going to be around when you went to Lenasia. But wherever there was cricket, you seemed to find Hussein there. He was always somewhere, wherever there was cricket going on. Recently, there was a test match against Bangladesh and in Port Elizabeth, and I think he was there. So the cameras showed him sitting there in Port Elizabeth, and that's where he passed away because his daughter lives there. But he was that type of figure. He had a very good sense of humor as well. So always had something chirpy, something funny, something to say. So people enjoyed his company. He mingled with the greats. I mean, when Gary Sobers and Clive Lloyd and Sunil Gavaskar and all those guys came here, Hussein was one of the guys who was very close to them because he was part and parcel of the development program just post-unity. He worked for the Transvaal Cricket Board at that stage. So he was very involved in cricket. But to answer your question and come back to it, it's absolutely important, and I'm so glad that somebody like him stayed involved in cricket for so many years, continued putting back into the game, and continued to inspire young cricketers. many young cricketers in Lenasia. I was at the funeral yesterday, Valen, and so many young cricketers attended the funeral, and I think they will feel his absence and the vacuum that he will leave. But he certainly leaves a wonderful legacy.
Can you share one of the anecdotes that were shared at the funeral about Ayob that really sums him up?
So, I mean, look at the funeral was, it started raining as we got there, so it all got cut short very quickly. But the Muslim funerals don't have speeches and things like that. It's very quick. It gets done as soon as possible. I believe there will be a commemoration taking place in the next week or two for him, and that the Lenasia Cricket Club, together with Central Gauteng Lions Cricket Board, will be hosting something to that effect. So I know that's coming up quite soon, and perhaps maybe that's something you could send the cameraman to. I think that would be quite interesting to attend. But I mean, coming back to Hussein and just some of, I just always remember him joking, laughing, having a chirp, youngsters, inspiring, motivating, always at the side of the field, always. Whenever we played Lenasia, and even when I was coaching there, he was always there, first in the morning, throughout the day, and late at night, at the end when you're leaving. He just found a way to be at the cricket field all the time. He loved the game that much. So it was just the passion that he poured into everything he did in cricket. And throughout Africa, when you talk to people in Africa, Qasim Suleiman, who was involved in ICC Africa, and you talk to so many people who were involved in cricket in the development program in those days and even in Africa, they will tell you about the legacy that he leaves.
Other than the news of Hoosain Ayob's passing this past weekend, we also saw Paul Adams stating that he won't be a part of Mark Boucher's disciplinary hearing, which is set to take place next week, which has really thrown the CSA disciplinary hearing into doubt. You yourself were a part of the SJ, and you went, you testified, you shared some of your experiences. Seeing what Paul Adams has now said, seeing Graham Smith being cleared of racism and the allegations made against him, do you feel that the process has been undermined? I mean, I was also caught a little off guard and a bit surprised by Paul Adams' statement that came out yesterday. I found that a little surprising, and I'm not too sure. I haven't spoken to Paul yet. I probably will give him a call at some stage, but to find out what his reasons are. That he doesn't want to come and testify. But I would have thought it also would be a great opportunity to come and state your case. I suppose perhaps maybe from Paul's point of view, he may be thinking that, and I think he did say that in the little interview that you played now, that he didn't, he's not targeting anybody. He doesn't feel like he wants to go after individuals. It's more about the message and about changing things for the future. But I think coming out of the SJ and hearings, and you're right, I did testify there as well, and I had a long submission, a written one as well as an oral one, and I thought, for me, coming out of it, it's so important that there's progress coming out of that, that things take place coming out of that can change South African cricket and the future of South African cricket for the better, so that we don't relive all those dark moments that so many former players spoke about. And whether that translates into the perpetrators of some of those acts that took place, whether it was a song in the change room or whether it was a non-selection or whether it was a clique being formed and some other perhaps black cricketers feeling a bit marginalized, and there was so much that came out. Hussein, I'm sorry to have to stop you, but we unfortunately have run out of time. Hussein Manack, former first-class cricketer, chatting to us here on Newzroom Afrika. We appreciate your time.